I had no idea a single $5 bill could spark a citywide movement and change a man's life forever. It was just a piece of paper, a simple transaction I barely thought about. But it turned out to be a spark that lit a fire I never could have imagined, a fire that warmed a man who had been cold for a very long time and reminded an entire city of its own heart. While this story is about a man named Arthur, his experience echoes in so many others, reminding us how a small moment of connection can change everything.
It all started on a Tuesday, one of those relentlessly gray evenings in late fall when the sky seems to press down on the city and the wind finds every gap in your clothing. I was walking home from work, head down, lost in that modern trance of deadlines and notifications, where you're surrounded by people but feel completely alone. And then I saw him. He was sitting on the cold concrete, his back against the brick wall of a closed-down bakery, a thin blanket pulled up to his chin. He wasn't asking for anything. He was just there, an invisible fixture in the daily rush. I'd walked past him and hundreds like him 1,000 times before. But that night, for some reason, I stopped. Before we continue, comment below, what would you do if you had the chance to help someone like Arthur? Hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because stories like this prove that even one small act can change a life forever. Don't just watch, share your thoughts.
His name, I'd learn later, was Arthur. That at that moment, he was just a man with tired eyes and a beard with more gray in it than I first realized. He looked like he hadn't had a warm meal in a long time. Yet there was a quiet dignity about him, a stillness in the chaos of the evening commute. I fumbled in my pocket and my fingers closed around a crumpled $5 bill. It wasn't much, barely enough for a hot meal at the diner down the street. I walked over, my heart doing a nervous drum roll. "Excuse me," I said, my voice feeling way too loud in the sudden silence between us. He looked up, and his eyes weren't vacant or hostile. They were just weary, like he'd seen it all and was too tired to be surprised anymore. I thought you might be able to use this," I stammered, holding out the $5. "For a coffee or something warm." He looked at the bill, then back at me. A long moment passed. Then he slowly reached out a hand, his fingers rough and calloused, and took the money. He didn't snatch it. He took it gently, his fingers brushing mine for a split second. He said, "Thank you." His voice was raspy like it hadn't been used much. "God bless you." And that was it. I gave a quick, awkward nod and walked away, much faster than before. I didn't look back. The whole thing couldn't have lasted more than 30 seconds, but it replayed in my mind all the way home. The way he said thank you. It wasn't just a phrase, it was heavy with genuine gratitude. It was the thank you of a man who didn't expect it, who maybe was no longer used to being seen. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling. Sitting in my warm apartment, a world away from the cold concrete where I'd left him, that $5 transaction felt so incomplete, insufficient. It was a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. It might buy him a meal, but it wouldn't get him through the night or the next day. It solved the problem for an hour, but it didn't change his reality. I felt that familiar pang of helplessness, the one that makes you want to turn away because the problem feels too big. But then I thought about his eyes, that weary, quiet dignity. He wasn't a problem, he was a person. So I did something I rarely do. I opened my laptop and just started writing. I didn't have a plan. I just wrote about the encounter, the gray evening, the feeling of being disconnected, and that simple, profound moment of connection. I wrote about Arthur's tired eyes and his raspy, heartfelt thank you. I wasn't trying to preach, I just told the story. I ended the post with an honest admission. It cost me $5, but I feel like I'm the one who received something of value. I keep thinking about him out there in the cold. I wish I could do more. I titled it, I Met a Man Named Arthur Tonight, and posted it on my social media page for my small network of friends. I didn't expect much, maybe a few likes, a sympathetic comment. I closed the laptop and went to bed. The image of Arthur against that brick wall burned into my mind. I had no idea what I had just started. The next morning, my phone was buzzing. Not once or twice, it was a continuous, relentless vibration. I picked it up, blurry-eyed, and saw a waterfall of notifications. My post about Arthur had been shared, not just a few times, hundreds, then thousands. It had broken free from my small circle and was racing through the city's digital veins. The comments were a flood of emotion. People weren't just sad, they were activated. I've seen him too on the corner of Elm and 4th, one person wrote. Another said, my heart just broke. We can't just let people be invisible. The sentiment was the same over and over. What can we do? Then a comment appeared that changed everything. It was from a woman named Maria, who owned a small restaurant, Maria's Corner Diner, just blocks from where I'd seen Arthur. She wrote, if you can find this man, tell him he has a hot meal waiting for him at my diner every single day, no charge. Just ask for Maria. That was the first real spark. Within an hour, another followed. A man named Frank, who owned Frank's Barbacoa, posted, I've got a chair, scissors, and a hot towel waiting for Arthur. A man deserves the dignity of a good haircut and a shave. Find him and send him my way. It was happening. The story was building a bridge from the digital world to the real one. People were no longer just expressing sympathy, they were offering real, tangible help. Overwhelmed, I saw a dozen comments suggesting the same thing. Start a GoFundMe. I'd always felt weird about asking strangers for money online, but the collective will was undeniable. People wanted to help. So I set one up. I titled it simply, A New Beginning for Arthur, and set a modest goal of $500. Maybe enough for a room for a week and some new clothes. I posted the link, and then I watched in absolute awe. The first donation was $5. For the next coffee, the message read, then $20, then $10. Within an hour, it blew past the $500 goal. But it didn't stop. The total kept climbing, $1,000, $2,500. By lunchtime, it was over $5,000. My little post had become a focal point for the city's compassion. Every donation came with a message from a fellow human being. This is for my brother who I lost to the streets. Thank you for reminding us to see each other. Many stories of kindness that go viral start with a small act, which then inspires a wave of generosity online. This was happening right on my screen. The online momentum was incredible, but what happened next was even better. I went back to Arthur's spot. I had to find him. As I walked, I felt a nervous energy. What if he wasn't there? But he was. Same spot. And something was different. Next to him was a brand new thermos and a thick wool blanket I didn't recognize. Someone had already been there. As I got closer, a woman was handing him a bag with a steaming container. She saw me, recognized me from my profile picture, and smiled. You're the one who wrote about him, aren't you? I work just around the corner. I couldn't stop thinking about him after I read your post. Arthur looked up at me, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. He was confused, overwhelmed. I don't understand, he said, gesturing to the new items. People just keep coming. I knelt down, my voice thick with emotion. Arthur, I began, something incredible is happening. I told some people your story, and they wanted to help too. They wanted to help you. The wave of support wasn't just online anymore. It was a physical presence on the corner of Elm and 4th. A local dentist left a card offering a full checkup. A laundromat owner offered to wash all his clothes. The city wasn't just giving money. It was giving its services, its time, its heart. This is a powerful reminder that communities can rally to support their members. often sparked by a single story. By the end of the second day, the GoFundMe had reached an unbelievable $22,000. Local news outlets had started calling. It was time to tell Arthur that the life he had known on this patch of concrete was over. It was time for his new life to begin. Finding Arthur the next morning was a mission. He wasn't at his spot. A small pile of offerings, groceries, another blanket, a pair of gloves sat in his place. My stomach twisted. Had all this attention scared him off? I spent 2 hours searching, calling Maria at the diner and Frank at the barber shop. Nothing. Finally, I found him on a park bench, staring at a flock of pigeons. He looked smaller, more vulnerable, away from his usual spot. I sat down next to him, leaving a respectful space. We just sat in silence for a few minutes. "They scare easily," he said, his voice a whisper. "But they always come back." "Arthur," I said softly, "are you okay? Has all of this been too much?" He turned to me, a flicker of fear in his eyes. "I don't know what's happening. People, they're being so kind. I don't I don't feel like I deserve it." My heart ached. The weight of neglect had been so heavy for so long that a wave of kindness felt threatening, undeserved. It's a pattern often seen in stories where people who have been unhoused for a long time are faced with overwhelming generosity. "You deserve every bit of it, Arthur," I said firmly, but gently. "You deserve to be seen. You deserve a chance." I took a deep breath. "Arthur, the fundraiser online, it's a little more than a few $100s. I pulled out my phone and opened the app, my own hands shaking. "The people of this city, they saw you." I turned the screen towards him. The big, bold numbers at the top read $22,471. Arthur just stared at the screen, his jaws slack. A full minute passed. Then his face began to crumple. His shoulders started to shake, and a ragged, choked sob escaped his lips. He covered his face with his hands and just wept. He wept for the years of being ignored, for the hunger, for the cold, and he wept for the sudden, impossible reality of a new beginning. I just sat there, a silent witness. There are moments so raw, so human, that words are an intrusion. After a long time, he wiped his eyes with his sleeve. He, I, I thought people had forgotten," he whispered. "They didn't forget, Arthur. They just needed a reminder. And you were that reminder." The rest of the day was a blur of firsts. The first stop was Frank's Barber Co. Frank greeted Arthur with a warm handshake, not as a charity case, but as a customer. I watched as the scissors snipped away years of neglect, revealing a new man. When Frank held up the mirror, Arthur stared, tentatively touching his clean-shaven cheek. He didn't look like a homeless man anymore. He just looked like a man. Next, we went shopping at a department store. "This is too much," he kept saying, touching the soft fabrics. "This is your money, Arthur, your new beginning." He picked out sturdy work boots, a warm coat, and a few flannel shirts. Standing in front of the mirror in new clothes, he stood a little taller. The most powerful moment came that evening when we checked him into a clean, quiet hotel. I gave him the key card. He held it like a winning lottery ticket. "You have a hot shower waiting for you, Arthur, and a soft bed." His eyes filled with tears again, but this time They weren't tears of sorrow. The thought of a simple hot shower, a basic comfort most of us take for granted, was enough to bring him to tears. It's a detail often highlighted in these transformation stories, the profound impact of restoring basic human dignity. I left him at his door. The spark had caught fire, and Arthur was finally beginning to feel its warmth.
The next morning, I met a different man. The Arthur who opened the hotel room door was clean-shaven. His hair was neat, and he wore a new blue flannel shirt. But the biggest change was a fragile, flickering light of hope in his eyes. "I slept," he said, with a small, wondrous smile. "I actually slept through the whole night." We talked for hours over coffee. For the first time, Arthur told me his story. It wasn't a single catastrophic event, but a slow slide. He'd been a carpenter with a wife and daughter. But a work injury led to a painkiller dependency, then losing his job, then his family and his home. He'd been on the streets for almost 8 years. It's a tragically common story. You lose your address, you lose your footing. You become a ghost. People look right through you. After a while, you start to look through yourself too. As he spoke, my phone buzzed. It was a message from the GoFundMe page. A woman named Sarah thought Arthur might be her brother, who she hadn't seen in nearly a decade. She described a small scar above his left eyebrow from falling out of a treehouse as a boy. I looked at Arthur. There it was, faint, but there. "Arthur," I said, my voice barely a whisper. I think your sister is looking for you." The phone call was one of the most emotional moments of my life. I dialed, put the phone on speaker, and stepped away. "Hello?" a voice said, hesitant and hopeful. Arthur took a shaky breath. "Sarah?" A sharp intake of breath on the other end. "Arthur? Oh my God, is that really you?" Tears streamed down Arthur's face as they filled in the gaps of a lost decade. She had never stopped looking. The relief and love in her voice were a powerful current flowing through the phone. Helping individuals reconnect with family is often a goal of these community efforts. With the funds and his sister back in his life, things moved quickly. We worked with a local charity to find him a small, furnished apartment. The day he got the keys, he walked through the apartment, running his hand along the kitchen counter, and sat on the edge of his bed in his room. "I'm home," he said, the words full of a meaning I could only begin to comprehend. His sister, Sarah, flew in a week later. Their reunion at the airport was a beautiful, tearful collision. But the story doesn't end there. Maria's Diner renamed their special the Pay It Forward plate, where customers could buy an extra meal for someone in need. Frank, the barber, started a monthly Day of Dignity with free haircuts. People who donated started volunteering at local shelters, creating their own ripples of kindness. It all started with $5, a small, almost insignificant act. But what I've learned is that there's no such thing as an insignificant act of kindness. That $5 wasn't about the money. It was a message that said, "I see you." And when one person feels seen, it can empower them to see themselves again. Arthur's life was changed not just by the money, but by the overwhelming proof that he mattered. He's working part-time now, doing handyman work. He has dinner with his sister every Sunday. He's rebuilding his life, one day at a time. This journey changed me too. It taught me that we all have the power to be a spark. We don't have to solve the entire problem of homelessness. Sometimes all it takes is $5. Sometimes it just takes a moment to look someone in the eye and acknowledge their humanity. You never know what kind of fire that simple spark might ignite. If this story moved you, consider subscribing for more stories about the power of human connection. And more importantly, the next time you have a chance to be a spark for someone, I hope you take it. You might just change a life forever.